then reconsider what can we do? What can you do to let the things go much faster? Because the more you donate, the more space you free up, and that is the win. And that is the goal. Less stuff, more life, right? Absolutely.
You're listening to the Decluttering Club podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Mueller, and it's my mission to equip women to declutter their homes, their time, and their lives so that they can cherish what truly matters.
Donation do's and don'ts. Today, we're going to dig into this and we're going to get real because I think that sometimes people use this as an excuse or use this as a way out of their problems. And I want to tell you that is not cool. All right. So that's what we're going to dig into today in episode number 57. Before I get into that, you may notice looks like I'm in a different place. I am not in a different office. I have just like rearranged. And I was being interviewed on a different podcast a couple of days ago. And I was saying, gosh, I really don't like the backdrop. I need to do something about this, right? I just have shelves behind me. And my friend who was interviewing me, he's like, oh, I was just actually going to say how nice and minimal it was. So I guess you never know, right? I am planning to do something about this backdrop, but for now, this is what we got, and we're not going to let that stop us. All right. So I had this topic in my mind because I'm always noticing these kind of things when I am out and about. I'm noticing thrift stores and places to drop off donations, but they have like those bins in, let's say, grocery store parking lots, right? They have these big metal bins where you can drop off donations, and you can drop off shoes and mainly like clothes and shoes and things like that, right? Because it goes in the bin and then somebody picks it up eventually, and then it gets, I don't know, gets processed and given away or sold, or I don't know what. Um, but there's this bin there's a couple bins in a parking lot near to my house, and they have a camera on, on the top of this bin, and it turns on. It makes a little noise, a little jingle to let you know, oh, you're being recorded. Right? We are watching you. And why does it do that? Well, clearly it's doing that because people are dumping their junk there. They're just leaving their crap there at the donation place, and it's causing a problem. So I thought, oh, this would be a really good time for us to just talk about this, because we, as a decluttering community, I feel like we have the ability to influence how things are donated and what is donated, what is not donated, and these kinds of behaviors, because we are such a large community and we have this power. So I want to share my ideas with you, and then you can take them out into the world and propagate them. And maybe we can make it so this kind of thing doesn't happen. Maybe I'm a little idealistic, probably. Actually, 100% I am. But I think it is important for us to talk about this. And maybe we can influence the world for good. And then, people are not going to be dumping their stuff. Okay. So donation do's and don'ts. And I have 10 of them. I think they're more or less evenly matched. Okay. So we're going to talk about the don'ts first. We're going to get the negatives out of the way, and then we're going to talk about the do's. Okay. So your number one donation don't just donate stuff because you can't be bothered to throw it out, or because you can't be bothered to pay for someone to come pick it up, right? You want to donate things that are in decent condition. And I am not saying that you need to go through every single item with a fine-tooth comb. Don't do that either. But don't just donate stuff just because you don't want to be bothered with the hassle of disposing of it, right? If it is junk, it needs to go in the trash, or maybe it can be recycled. Don't just donate stuff. I know sometimes people are like, oh, well, just let the thrift store worry about that. That's going to be their problem, or people don't even think about it. Don't do that. Not cool. Number two, don't just donate things to appease your guilty conscience and say, well, at least I'm not throwing it away, right? If it's junk, or if it is not usable, then it should not be donated. I think we forget that, when we donate, there's a whole heck of a lot of work that happens after we, walk away. Somebody has to process that stuff. Someone needs to be paid to handle that stuff. Somebody needs to sort it. Somebody might need to clean it. Somebody needs to put it on a shelf, or make sure it gets to, somebody who can use it. And if it's not usable, or if for some reason they can't use whatever it is you've donated, then somebody has to pay to throw it away. Right now, they have to go get a dumpster and deal with it. And this is a big problem for thrift stores and donation places, is that a lot of the stuff that they receive is not usable, and so they end up paying to dispose of it. So just make sure that you're not creating extra work for a company or for someone else. And again, don't take this too far. Don't overthink this. I'm not saying that you have to inspect every item. I'm not saying that you should repair things. If there's an item of clothing has a little tear, a little hole, and I think someone will still be able to use this, then don't waste your time, making this into a big deal. But don't just donate things in mass so that you don't have to feel bad about throwing them away. And I've seen this happen, so I know this is happening. All right, this one, number 3, might be a little challenging, but it's okay because we can do hard things, right? I know that sometimes people will say, well, I don't like to donate to XYZ place because I did once, or I heard once that, that the people there, they make comments, or, they're not handling my stuff the way I would handle it. Okay, the truth is they're not going to handle your stuff the way that you would handle it. Maybe they're lovely and they're going to be super careful, but at the end of the day, they are managing literal tons of donations. They don't have the luxury of treating your things in the same way that you might treat them. And actually, have you been treating your things in the way that you want to treat them? Right? I think when we put these expectations on other people, we are so often disappointed. So if somebody makes a comment or somebody rolls their eyes or whatever, like it doesn't matter. Like, who cares? Does it change the fact that you're giving something away that hopefully someone else can use? It really doesn't. And I think that we limit ourselves so terribly when we're like, well, I don't like the way that one person made a comment to me one time. Like, that maybe that guy was having a bad day. Maybe that woman was maybe she's crabby, or maybe you misinterpreted what she said. Don't let that get in the way of you donating things. It doesn't have to. Just drop off your things and let it go. And, let the people on the other side, let them be who they are, and don't worry about it so much. It doesn't need to constrain you letting go of things. Okay, we can just let that expectation go as we are donating. All right, number 4, do not drop and shop. Okay, do not drop off your donations and then go right around to the front of the store and go shopping. Just don't do it. All right, make a rule for yourself that is not something you do. If you do want to go to that thrift store, do it on another day or do it at another place. Like, it doesn't make any sense to be dropping things off and then adding more things to your life and to your home. Now, you might say, you know what, I'm looking for a specific thing. And like, okay, cool. Like, that's fine. You get to decide what you're going to do for yourself. But I'm just saying, don't just go shopping. Don't just browse because it's fun and you're looking for treasures, right? That's just going to get you into trouble. So make that one of your guidelines. Don't drop and shop. It does not work out well. Number 5, don't wait for a full load of donations, right? I'm putting full load in quotes there. I know a lot of times people get really, really structured with how they like to donate, and that can work out really well, right? Like, I always donate over here to this place and I go on Thursday or whatever, right? But just make sure that the donations are not piling up at home just because you have made some kind of an arbitrary rule for yourself that says this is what it looks like. I am always in favor of you getting the things out of your house as soon as possible, immediately, if possible, right? And maybe that means that you go to the thrift store when it's convenient, even if you don't have a full trunk load. Maybe it means that you go to the thrift store to drop off just a couple things. If that is getting the things out of your house, that is the win. And we don't have to wait for the absolute perfect time. I think we as humans, I think especially in today's day and age, we're very interested, in fact, maybe over invested in making things efficient, right? We're like, okay, I don't want to make an extra trip. I don't know, whatever. I want to carry as much as possible because I don't want to, I mean, think about when you're bringing your groceries in from the car. Do you overload yourself so that you can make, 4 trips instead of 6? Right? But then what happens, right? We're obsessed with the efficiency. But what happens is then we trip and fall and we break the eggs, or we get hurt, or like why are we in such a hurry? Why are we so interested in optimizing these particular things, and then we're missing out on other things? So I'm going to say, don't wait for a full load. And if the rules that you have in place for yourself, right? If the rules that you have defined that help you decide how and when you donate, if they are preventing you from getting these things out of your house, then reconsider, what can we do? What can you do to let the things go much faster? Because the more you donate, the more space you free up, and that is the win. And that is the goal. Less stuff, more life, right? Absolutely. All right. This is my last don't. Okay. And this kind of goes along with number 3. But this is, don't be frustrated. Don't put expectations on what is done with your stuff later. Okay. So let's say you donate something. I've heard both sides of the coin here. I've heard people say, I donated XYZ and I don't want them to make money off of my stuff. Like, that's not cool. Right? I don't want them to, don't put the thing that I donated on sale for $50 because they're going to make money off of me. Well, they may or they may not. First of all, like, are you sure? Do you know what it costs to run that store? I think people wildly underestimate what it costs to run a donation spot. But beyond that, like, why shouldn't they make money off of this? The donation places are doing us a service, like an actual service. This is useful to you, right? So maybe you're doing them a favor, but they're also doing you a favor, right? And I don't like to think of it as like a favor. I like to think of it as, this is a service that I'm taking advantage of, right? And so if I can drop off my things and know that they will be repurposed or sold to someone else, I feel like that's a win. And if they're going to make money off of it, I really think it's none of my business how much they price things for, right? I've heard people be frustrated that things are priced too high. I've also heard the opposite. People are frustrated that things are priced too low. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's my cherished whatever. And it's being sold for, pennies. Well, like, how do we know what something is worth, right? Your thing, your item, your donation in the thrift store is going to be worth, like, they're going to know best, hopefully, what it is worth in that place. It's not going to be worth the same as it was when you bought it new or when you created it, right? Those two things are completely different. And so I really encourage you to let go of having requirements for what they do and how much your things are sold for, or even whether or not they sell those things. Okay. It's really none of our business once we have let it go. And you're going to have so much freedom if you stop worrying about what happens on the other side. All right, now we're going to get to some donation do's, the things that we should do, because we love donations around here, don't we? I mean, Decluttering Club, this is a beautiful thing. If we can pass on the things, right? The definition of clutter is anything in your possession that is not serving you, right? It's taking up space. It's not serving you. And you decide what that is and what that looks like. But if you can take something out of your house that is not serving you and pass it on so that it can serve someone else, I feel like that's such a win. Now you've freed up space, right? Less stuff, more life. Now you're going to get more life, and someone else is going to get more life because they're going to find something that they do need, that they feel like they need. And then we're going to support a business and all the good things that go along with that in the process. Like, it's like a triple win there. So I think that's just so important to donate when you can, when it makes sense for you. And I do believe that donation is probably maybe donation and trash. Those are probably the two most used options when people are decluttering, right? You can sell things and you can give them away and you can give them to your neighbor. Like that's all cool. But for people with a lot of clutter, you're going to take most advantage of either donations and or things are going to go into the trash. And we've already covered that, right? So we love donations, and I think there's a wonderful way to do it, what I consider right. So the first donation due is to donate things in good condition, right? Like some people are like, well, I don't know, I don't want to give that away. It's still good. It might be useful. And I'm like, no, that is exactly the time to give something away, to donate something when it is still useful, right? Because think about the opposite. What if you were like, I only give things away that are not useful. I only give things away that I don't need anymore or that, I have zero use for. Well, then we're giving away like junk, right? If it's not useful, then nobody's going to need it. So let's not do that. In fact, the more generous you can be with your things, and I do believe this is a question of generosity. If we can be in abundance and we can be generous when we are letting go, right? That is going to come back to you like tenfold. I really believe that, right? So if you give something away and you're like, oh, it kind of hurts, kind of, I paid a lot of money for that, but it's clutter. I'm not using it. It's still useful. It's still in great condition. Amazing. Let's give that away. Let's donate that because that is going to come back to you and you're going to have the benefit of the less stuff and the more life. All right. So this is just such a win-win-win. So look out for, those little thoughts that pop up that say, oh, I can't donate that because it's still useful. Right. And just correct yourself. That is not a reason to not donate something. In fact, that is a reason to donate something. And this is really just rooted in fear, right? So if you are telling yourself that you're acting in fear, like I'm afraid I might need it. I'm afraid I'm going to regret it. That's all fear-based, right? Which is blocking the abundance that you are looking for. So be careful with that one and just really encourage yourself. And sometimes it's a stretch, sometimes it's a challenge. Stretch yourself into donating things that are in great condition, that are useful. And in fact, I'm going to say those are the only things that should be donated. Okay, do number 8. We had six don'ts, and now we have 4 do's. So do number 8 is to seek out the rules of what can and can't be accepted wherever you're donating, right? So again, remember back to the grocery store bins, they got signs up and they're like, don't leave toys here, don't leave whatever, right? We can't take X, Y, Z. And people just ignore that stuff. They're like, I don't care, this is not my problem, I'm gonna make it someone else's problem. Right. So I want to encourage you not to do that. It could be a quick phone call. Maybe you look up the website of the organization where you're donating to and find out, can they take toys? Can they take, car seats? Can they take furniture? Can they take pillows? Find out beforehand just so you have a general idea, right? Because again, it's going to cost them time and most importantly, money to process your donations. And so if you can avoid giving them things that they can't use, that's going to be a win. You might donate things that are perfectly good and in great condition, but they don't take them. And so now they're probably going to end up putting them in the trash because they can't go through the extra work of now them donating your item to someone else. So just spend a little time, find out what the rules are. They're probably going to vary based on where you live and what kind of an organization you're donating to. It's definitely worth the effort. Number 9, I want to encourage you to consider handling the things that you are donating with care. And I realize this is a little bit of the opposite of what I said earlier. Don't expect the workers, the place that you donate to, don't expect them to handle your items with so much care. But the opposite is if you are donating something very fragile, right, you might want to spend a little time packing it up nicely, or protecting it, or maybe you can hand it over directly to someone. I've done this before, right? If I'm donating like glasses or something, I will see if I can hand them over directly, and then the person can take them right inside the store, and they're not going to get like broken sitting and waiting in the pile. So we can do a little bit more. And again, Please do not let this become an exercise in, oh my gosh, Sarah said, no, I got to pack all my donations up. And no, that's not what I'm saying here. But just spend a little bit of extra time if you're donating something fragile, or maybe you mark the box or something like that. I also want to encourage you to really get into the mindset of gratitude and abundance when you are donating. This is going to make all the difference, right? I mean, you could even think about like, they're doing me a tremendous favor. I'm giving gifts here. Like, this is amazing. We can feel so grateful and abundant. And we can feel like, I am so glad that my life has so much abundance that I can give away the things that I don't need. And in fact, I'm going to say that everyone listening to this podcast is in the top, whatever, 10% of the world, right? There are people in this world that do not have the luxury of giving away things that are, broken, or clothing that's not mended. They can't do that, right? They're worried about food and water and shelter. And that's not the case for the people who are listening in this community. And, I think that's just a tremendous blessing. And I think we need to be aware of that. We don't really need any of the things that we were holding on to, like none of it. What do we need? We need food and shelter and clothing and warmth. That's what we really need. And the rest of it is kind of a bonus, right? And so I try to remember that whenever I'm feeling like, oh, just like kind of trying to hold on to things like, gosh, I don't need any of this stuff. And maybe someone else could use it. And then I would probably be happier without it anyways, right? So I just want to encourage you to, especially if this is challenging for you, which it may well be, and that's okay. But if you are struggling with letting go and thinking, that you might need it later, just get into a place of abundance. Remind yourself of all the blessings that you do have. And I'm telling you, once you start thinking, I know you're going to find so many. And when we are in gratitude and when we are in a place of abundance, like there's no room for fear. Like that will drive out all the fear. And then we can let go and have the freedom. Okay. So if you are dealing with some fear there, that is the answer. First, you can remind yourself that you're safe and there is no danger, but just get into that place of gratitude and abundance, and that will make the letting go so much easier. Okay. Because these things, right, they're all nice to have. And I don't want you to let your things get in the way of you living an abundant life. All right. And my last donation due is not really a donation due. It is consider hiring a dumpster. If you have a lot of things, and if like all these do's and don'ts are sounding super overwhelming to you, and you're like, oh my God, Sarah just made a whole lot more work for me. And maybe you think, my stuff isn't really in that great of a condition. Maybe the best answer is to hire a dumpster. And this may seem shocking, right? A lot of you are very shocked right now, and you might be a little mad at me. That's okay. You can be mad at me. I can take it. Okay, but here's what I want to offer to you. When you go through the pain of letting something go that cost a lot of money, or that, that still has use or whatever, when you do that, that pain can be useful. You will be able to use that in the future to not make that same mistake. Let's say you did a whole bunch of over shopping, right? And you have a whole lot of guilt and you have a whole lot of shame, you have a whole lot of regret. And you're like, oh my goodness, I could really use that money. But also, I really can't sell these things, for whatever reason, time, or maybe they're just no longer valuable, right? So you decide, I'm gonna get rid of them. They're gonna go in the dumpster, or they're gonna go to the donation place. That pain that you will experience when you are letting those things go, you will use that, and you will remember that next time you are tempted to overshop. You're going to be like, I really want to buy that thing, but I don't want to go through that pain again. And when we avoid the pain of letting go, right? When we avoid it, then we're not learning that lesson, right? And then we may actually be more tempted to overshop even more, right? So it's a vicious cycle that will repeat itself. So you want to use that, right? Don't avoid that. Lean into that. Like this is the price that we pay when we overshop or when we keep things longer than we can handle them, right? Then we have the pain of letting go. And we want to use that pain for our own growth and good. Otherwise, it's just wasted, right? And I don't want that for you. Okay. So those are my 10 donation do's and don'ts. What do you think? Do you like these? Do you not like them? Do you have your own to add to it? I'd love it if you would leave a comment wherever you're listening to this podcast. That would be amazing. Or you can go find us on social media at the Decluttering Club. We would love to hear from you. This is an important topic, and I think it's great that we have a discussion around it. All right, I'll see you next week, everyone. Take care.
That's all we have for you today. If you enjoyed this podcast, would you leave us a review? It would really help us get the word out. To start your decluttering journey, go to thedeclutteringclub.com. That is declutteringclub.com. We'll see you next time.